And welcome back, everyone. So now let's kick into the roundtable so you can know a bit about more the challenge and the topic itself. So as you've seen also maybe from the third, it said we're going to be four, but unfortunately, and as it goes usually with Murphy's Law, we are only two. So Miguel had a last minute, he couldn't make it and might be running a bit late. It's a bit unfortunate, but we will start from there and then see if at least Luísa can join us meanwhile. So with me, I still have Rosa. Rosa, she's a researcher at UShift, and she really focuses on cycling in cities. And then, you already know Nuno from also one of the topic entities, and they're very much specialized into mobility and in the city. Before we kick off this roundtable, since Rosa, this is your first time here, maybe you could just give a real short intro and just talk about the work that you do at Shift, because I think it's really related to these challenges that we have here today.
Okay, Leon, thank you very much for this invitation. It's very exciting to be here for Data Lake. So I'm a researcher at Technical Instituto Superior Técnico at the University of Lisbon. And I research mostly on cycling and how people behave and how people shift from one mode of transportation to other. What are their barriers? What moves them to shift for more sustainable modes of transportation? And in the end, to have better cities to live. So we, in our research lab, we tackle these research questions, not only about cycling, but also walking, shared mobility, all these new technologies. So that's basically what we do in our research lab. We deal a lot with data. I mean, for transportation, data became in the last years this huge thing. In particular, when you have a lot of companies that operate in cities, like e-scooter companies and car companies that you can call on with your mobile phone on demand. Also ticketing with transit operators. So we have like tons and tons of data to play with and to extract some valuable information to guide some policies to be applied to cities, in particular the cities where we live or that we connect with in our lab. So that's mostly what we do.
Perfect. Thank you for the real quick introduction. Well, let's maybe kick it off. And maybe I'll just start with one question, maybe of numbers on top of your head, because cycling has been a lot in the news since the start of this pandemic, because it's more safer in terms of virus transmissibility, because you don't have to sit next to another person on the bus. And perhaps do you have an idea through the data that you have at PSE that if indeed this is true, at least for the cities that you look into this?
So it's not only in the cities that we study, but it's a global thing that's happening. So a lot of people moved from transit and other services that they were using to cycling. Not only, a lot of people started to work from home, and they start to have their little healthy trips in the end of the day, and why not using cycling? So there was a huge boom for cycling. I mean, bicycles just were out of stock everywhere. It's not only in our country, but it's a global thing. And also cities committed to improve safety for cyclists, and creating corridors, pop-up cycle lanes, and sometimes giving incentives to people to buy their bicycles or expand their cycling networks or expand the bike sharing systems. So this is a thing that in last year it was very, very. You could see it happening everywhere. And yeah, that was an opportunity, but I mean, there's a challenge to make this not only something that's happened and then everybody will come back to their original mean of transportation, like driving, but the challenge is how to make this a habit. I mean, how to change this behavior to become something that you do it every day without thinking, right? Take a bicycle instead of taking a motorized transport for your individual trips, or walking, not only bicycle but walking.
Yeah. Nuno, what about you? Have you seen this trend in your data? I'm just curious. I don't know if you looked at it or not.
Well, hi everyone, first of all, and thank you for having me again here. I was listening to Rosa, and I was precisely thinking of some figures that I can give you, that I can provide you. Well, in fact, I have to congratulate all of you and the World Data League for this topic, because first of all, it's one of the most challenging one, and all the challenges basically are organized to answer one big question, and one big $1 million question. Well, we all want more people cycling. We want more adopters. We want to reduce the amount of people that travel by their own means of transportation, by car, by motorbike, for example. We want to improve the environment and everything else. But to have more people cycling, what in fact are the key dimensions that we should look at? The first one is the context, all the conditions. And this is precisely what the first challenge is addressing. Do we have the proper conditions for cycling? Okay, but then we cannot forget the other two dimensions that are also very important. For example, opportunity, and basically we have to know, to understand the typical mobility and the trips that people have to do every day, to see if, in fact, they have the opportunity to do it by bicycle. So we have to understand all the demand for mobility. And finally, the motivation. We cannot forget the cultural issues. For example, traditionally, and I can, before I can give you some figures, I can share with you a bit of the Portuguese context, because we have data for the Portuguese context. To give you an idea, we are not traditionally a cycling country. Apart from very specific areas, very specific and local areas that have cycling in their culture, for example, in the north, near Aveiro, for example, it's a tradition. Everyone cycles for more than 100 years. But apart from that, cultural issues, for example, incentives, like Rosa was saying, and precisely these have, in fact, all the challenges in this stage are addressing in some way a bit of all of these three dimensions. And this is very important, for example, when you want to predict not only the amount of people that are going to do trips with bicycles, or to estimate which segments have more impact, if added, are going to attract, for example, new segments. But I can give you some figures like Leon was asking. To give you an idea, just before the pandemic, we conducted a national survey about mobility, and we did more than 5,000 personal interviews, face-to-face interviews, to understand how people are using different means of transportation. And to give you an idea, in our country, it's just an example, the amount of people that are in some way, not occasional users, but more or less frequent users in their day-to-day in their day-to-day trips, our estimate is that 2.7 to 3% of the population is the amount, or was the amount of people that in fact used a bicycle to do their travels, their trips. Well, but then we got a pandemic, and like Rosa was saying, we had different moments, and I can give you a picture. The first reaction was, well, we have a lockdown, we are going home, and people start running, buying bicycles to do stuff. It doesn't matter where they were going, what kind of trips they needed to do, but the demand for bicycles increased heavily. And basically, people were not doing their usual trips like they needed to do before the pandemic, but they started using bicycles. And then we got summer. And during the summertime, well, it's a tradition. Either we are in a pandemic or not, unless we have a lockdown, the amount of people that are doing and are using bicycles increases a lot. And last year, during summer, yes, there was an increase in, of course, because of the weather conditions. Weather conditions are, in fact, a very important factor. But today, to give you an idea, after 1 year of pandemic, what do we see? Basically, the amount of people that are using bicycles for rides increased in general, but they are basically using bicycles for leisure and for their weekend trips and weekend rides, not, for example, for business, to go to work, to go to school, because there is a huge difference in the amount of people that are using on a weekday a bicycle and on weekends. But the positive thing is that the amount of people that are using bicycles, in fact, increased. So we have to convert them, just to give them the opportunity, the motivation, the context, like I was saying previously. We have to create the conditions, all the conditions, and understand the motivations precisely so they can start using bicycles more often on a day-to-day, on a weekday, on their regular trips and all the mobility needs they have. So basically, to give an idea, and we are a case, Portugal is a case that in the whole country, this is different from municipality to municipality, from region to region, but we don't have, or we didn't have, more than 3% of the population that were regular users. It's, well, we can say that it's too few or it's not too few. It depends on the positioning, of course, but we can increase that. We can get more targets. Another important thing, before the pandemic, to give you an idea, and for example, Rosa's works and investigations provide a lot of information about profiling. But in our research, to give you an idea, before the pandemic, the typical bicycle user, regular bicycle user, well, basically were men, young, urban, and in the middle classes. So the extremes, the lower classes and the upper classes, they are not using bicycles for different reasons. So there's a lot of space, for example, to get women to start using more often bicycles, to get different targets. And we have to understand the population because, yes, we have to change the mindsets, change the culture, and all these challenges. I believe that they all have, in some way, a piece that can touch some of these dimensions. But we have a task, it's $1 million question, to increase the amount of bicycle users.
Thank you so much for your input, Nuno. So now we have Camila actually joining in view of Luísa. Camila is also from the city of Medellin. Camila, would you like to maybe say hi? And turn on your camera as well. Hello.
Hi to everyone. How are you?
Good morning, Camila. I think it's still quite early morning there, right?
No, it's 9 a.m. It's okay.
9 a.m. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking -1 hour. Camila, so just to give a bit of background, we're discussing now cycling, and we've talked about how there has been already, because of this, because of the pandemic, there has been already a shift into cycling, mostly because it's seen as a bit more of a safer, let's say, safer alternative to public transportation. But also one thing that Nuno mentioned is that since a lot of people work from home, this biking usage indeed increased, but not, for example, to go to work, but rather to do the shopping or to go to everyday tasks and errands. Camila, maybe, and also we have Luísa there, I see. Perfect. Hello, Luísa. So maybe I would like to jump into the next question. Well, actually, maybe first, just maybe before we start, maybe Camila and Luísa, maybe one of you can just take your lead for a couple of minutes, just to tell us a bit about what are the efforts of Medellin into getting more people into cycling, and what have been also your challenges there. Feel free, any of you, to reply to that.
She's the expert.
I don't think we hear you, Luísa.
Luísa, el micrófono.
Así.
Pero no te entendí, Lennon, lo que dijiste porque se te cortó.
Ellos quieren saber cuál es el reto o cómo hemos tratado de mejorar el tema de traer pues como más usuarios a usar la bicicleta en Medellín. ¿Cómo ha sido como ese proceso?
Ok. Bueno, nosotros empezamos con un piloto que tenía como propósito final transportar o incentivar el uso de la bicicleta en los estudiantes universitarios. Si quieres, María, me dices cómo nos organizamos para que traduzca.
Sorry. Do you think it's possible to do it in English, or to reply in English, because otherwise we have a really short amount of time, and yeah.
Se intenta.
No me da. No. No, yo creo que más fácil me vas traduciendo vos, ¿no?
Bueno, ¿y el piloto comenzó cuándo?
No, que hace 10 años empezamos un piloto donde el enfoque principal era incentivar el uso de la bicicleta en estudiantes universitarios.
So what you say is, in Medellin, we began with a pilot to motivate students from universities and schools to use the bicycle as a way of transportation.
Con el tiempo, cuando empezamos a expandirnos, nos dimos cuenta que los sectores industriales empezaron a usar la bicicleta, y esto implicó, obviamente, hacer un análisis respecto a cuáles empezaron a ser nuestros usuarios distintos a esa población objetivo.
Okay, but then as the pilot went like bigger, we found out that many workers were using as well the bicycle, so we had to change the way we see the bicycle, and to begin to think about the different kind of users that are interesting in this way of transportation.
A hoy yo creo que lo más importante del sistema de bicicletas públicas es que tenemos una homogeneidad en los usuarios. Es decir, hoy nuestros usuarios tienen un enfoque totalmente relacionado con los servicios, la industria, pero lo que hemos logrado es que los estudiantes universitarios han emigrado a la bicicleta particular, sin dejar de nosotros, sin dejar de prestar el servicio digamos, en los centros educativos de la ciudad. Eso yo creo que ha sido el mayor motivante de incentivar el uso de la bicicleta en Medellín.
So what you say now, it's today we have the public bike system. We call it Encicla in the Metropolitan area. But which is really good, it's that students, they are using private bicycles, they bought their own bicycles, and we have users from both the students and workers as well. But I think it's like the students are using their own bicycles, and the system is working also with other students, but for the workers as well.
Hoy yo creo que nuestra principal estrategia es seguir incentivando el uso de la bicicleta no solo en poblaciones particulares, sino en general. Hoy tenemos estaciones bastante interesantes como Moravia, que está al norte de la ciudad, con unas condiciones socioeconómicas totalmente distintas tal vez a donde se encuentran la mayoría de nuestras estaciones. Y nuestros datos lo que han arrojado es que siempre está entre la segunda y la estación con más préstamos. Entonces creo que desde ya como un proceso de planeación nuestro enfoque va a ser llegar también a sitios de la ciudad con condiciones socioeconómicas bajas que nos permitan también no solo incentivar el uso de la bicicleta, sino también mejorar las condiciones y calidad de vida de los habitantes de esos territorios.
So, and today what we want is to expand the system to go to neighborhoods with socio-economic difficulties, because we know with this expansion of the bicycle system, we can provide them a way to move very cheap, and we can improve their condition of life or the quality of life of those people that live on those areas, on those neighborhoods.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Actually, this touches really an interesting point, the one that Nuno was just saying, that in some cities you see more of the middle class using bikes rather than the lower and higher. So actually this really goes along exactly what Nuno was saying. So I think we can switch a bit into one discussion, is that how can actually data and cycling in cities can be connected. And then the question is, well, I think I can first ask the most obvious question is, how can you use the data to make cities more cyclable, and what has been actually already done so far? And maybe I will kick the ball back to Rosa, since that's the focus of also her research recently, I mean, in the last year. So maybe Rosa, what do you have for us?
Okay, so data analyzed provides evidence, provides an evidence base that you can use to inform decisions, to then prioritize their investments when they are trying to rise up cycling numbers. With that evidence, they can compare costs and benefits to make their best decisions and to make their policies. And with data, you can also monitor those policies. I mean, you can see what are you doing well or what you're doing wrong. If the policies that you had are giving what you are expecting, the impacts that you're expecting to have, and if not, how can you change it? How can you change those policies? Yeah, so in particular that in particular for starter cities, I mean cities that they don't quite know how to start to invest in cycling. I mean, cycling is something new for a lot of cities around the world. Where to start, how to start, what to do. This is very relevant to have data to rely on to make these policies. Yeah, and then when you have a more mature cycling network, more people cycling for their commuting, not only for leisure trips, but also for commuting. Then you can have other kind of data, like who is cycling, what are, if they are more male, women, what are their range of, if they are high income, low income, if all the territory is covered, if the opportunities and the accessibility to transport systems are equal. So then there's like other phase or other level to use data with. And all this is connected with the SDG goals. I mean, we have to provide same opportunities to everybody to cycling. You have to increase health, decrease carbonization. So all this is connected, and the use of data is very obvious to do this.
Okay, maybe perhaps Nuno, do you have anything that you would like to add to this?
Oh yes, well, Leon, I am a suspect, you know, so I think that you can solve almost anything with data, okay?
Yeah.
But apart from the typical operational insights that we can get from data to have the best decisions, to provide the best conditions, to have the best offer, and to improve this offer, for example, like the first challenge that we have right now, where do we have problems in pavement, for example, for cyclists? Apart from this, I believe that you can have and solve and get answers to lots of questions around this topic. For example, right now we are at a stage, and I believe it's worldwide, that we want to acquire new users to penetrate in new segments. How do we do that? For example, one example was the one that Luísa and Camila told from Medellin. But for example, we all data scientists, everyone knows that we have to touch and think in several disciplines. In this case, we can think as a marketeer, for example. And again, looking at the motivations to get more people, for example, we have to understand and to show people that cycling is not simply a trend. It's an experience. So we have to understand, for example, the values that people are associating with the cycling experience. And probably in some segments are looking at it as a way of life, as a freedom value, for example, as a family reunion and a family experience. Cycling for some people are a family experience. Everyone is going to cycle. The sons, daughters, wife, everyone, wife and other friends, everyone is cycling. So we have to think as a marketeer, and data can answer that. For example, one of the tips that I would give to all the groups for these challenges were, in fact, get all the external data that you can have, all the quantitative and qualitative insights. Why? Because in some of the challenges, don't forget that you are going to have to predict or to prescribe in some places that you did not observe. Your data, you don't have observations for those segments that do not exist yet. So you will have, for example, one tip would be to do some simulation, some simulation exercises, targeting new segments, for example, with new profiles. But how do you do that? So you have to think, you have to broaden your thinking, because you can answer lots and lots and lots of questions with data. Well, it depends always on the way we ask the question. What do we want to answer? And in this case, not only you can have answers for both operational day-to-day decision-making and very tactical, like the ones you have in the first challenge. But then again, for more strategic ones, you can also get the answers through data. So, of course, like I was starting, I am a suspect. I confess I'm a suspect. But yes, there are lots of answers that right now, the biggest problem that we are facing today is that we don't have that much data about behavior, for example, about profiling, about the motivation. Well, all the attitudinal data. And I believe that here, attitudinal data is key, both quantitative and qualitative data. So we have to not only get, for example, all the sensor data. Sensor data is great, it's quantitative, it's a fact, but think of different data, basically.
Perfect. That's like, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Rosa, go ahead.
No, just to add something that Nuno was saying about the way of life, or what people are, how do they identify themselves when they're thinking about cycling. But also, we should not forget that a lot of people use cycling as a working tool. I mean, we see more and more deliveries that are made by bicycle, and those are also people that are cyclists, and they work with that tool. And if they didn't have that tool, maybe they didn't have a job, or they were not working with that. Something just to add.
Yes,
I mean, logistics in the city also are very important. And if we had the data for that, it would be wonderful. But that's a problem in a lot of cities. And I mean, all these companies that don't share their data that we could work with. I mean, we could do much better job if we could access that kind of data.
Yeah, Rosa is right. There are several profiles. And for example, let me give you one question. What's the coolest? What's the coolest thing? To ride an Harley Davidson or to ride a bicycle? We can have different people riding different, both an Harley Davidson or a bicycle, and they can feel the same way. They can feel this freedom, feeling and cool lifestyle. So we have different profiles that, for example, right now are probably not using a bicycle, well, either because they don't have the opportunity to it or they don't have the motivation. Okay, so just try to get the more data as possible for these challenges.
And also that I mean, there's a lot of people that just want to ride their cars and they don't care for cycling, and that's okay too. The problem is the ones that want to bicycle and that they cannot because they don't have a place to park their bicycles, they don't have a safe network to ride, they don't feel safe, especially in particular women that they have these called missing links in the network when they are riding in the cycling network, and then they arrive to a black spot that they cannot cross safely. Maybe they will drop or quit cycling. So in particular for people that want to cycle, they cannot and can't.
Rosa and Leon, and then I will promise I will shut.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. This is exactly what we want. Kind of a
like
debate
Rosa
here.
was saying, I can give you another insight. For example, before the pandemic, in this research we conducted, like I was telling you, well, basically, men are much more propense to use a bicycle and not women. And why? Well, because basically women, they work much more than men. On a single day, women, they have to perform so many more tasks. They have so many travel destinations. They do lots and lots of things that they cannot do with the bike typically. And this was the main motivation not to use a bicycle. in our research. For example, women, they had to imagine the world before the pandemic. Women, they had to do the shopping. They had to place the kids for example, at school. They had to go to work. They had to go to the laundry. They had to go to work. And this was, in fact, this gender difference was very, very, very significant. And it's something that, you cannot change by snapping your fingers, but it's something that you can change culturally, generation after generation. You can educate and create these conditions. But yes, there is a huge difference in gender.
Yeah, and also the women are more risk averse. So if we don't give conditions to ride safely, I mean, it's not that balanced for women and men. In some research that we did in City of Lisbon, we could see a huge impact in providing safe infrastructure to bicycle. Before and after providing it, there was like no women riding there. And after you put there a piece of infrastructure, then a lot of women start riding there. So it balanced somehow the share. And also when you provide a bicycle, a shared cycling scheme, or a bicycle, a shared public sharing bicycle, you also get more women cycling, because I mean, women don't have to think about how to lock their bicycle and how to carry a bicycle to place it inside homes and things like that. So there's other questions that are when you provide with a bike sharing system to a city, you see more women cycling also.
Maybe
I have a teaser.
Yeah.
I have a
no,
teaser.
But maybe perhaps, yeah.
Girls,
Sorry.
if you cycle, you get even prettier.
So maybe we can also get the point of view from see how it is actually there in Colombia in terms of using data and what they have seen, and if they actually applied or did any created any kind of measures from what they've seen from data, or if they're hoping to. You are muted.
Lu. Luisa, ¿estás?
Hola. Bueno, yo creo que lo primero que hay que decir es que no hay que olvidar que Medellín es una ciudad latinoamericana, y como ciudad latinoamericana todavía tenemos bastantes inconvenientes desde la planeación de la ciudad. Respecto a como a varias preguntas, la de Rosa, por ejemplo, respecto a qué hemos hecho bien y qué hemos hecho mal. Cami, cuando sientas que estoy acelerando mucho me decís. Dale.
Can you hear me? Oh, who's with the noise, with the Pacific Ocean, or I don't know what.
No, we can hear you. Don't worry about it. Just go ahead.
Okay. What Lisa was saying is, first, we are a Latin American city, and that's like the first thing, because as a city, we don't have a well-planned city. So we have some challenges regarding planning of the city, as the core of the problem.
Respecto a qué hemos hecho bien y qué hemos hecho mal, yo creo que hemos hecho bien en la medida de instalar un sistema de bicicletas públicas en una ciudad donde todavía significa prestigio el adquirir un vehículo particular. Eso yo creo que ya de entrada es lo mejor que nos ha dejado el sistema de bicicletas. Sin embargo, también creo que hemos hecho bien las labores relacionadas con la planificación del sistema, empezar a estudiar nuestros usuarios, tal vez no con las tecnologías que quisiéramos ni los datos que quisiéramos, pero el el habernos permitido estudiar la demanda y la oferta que viene teniendo el sistema nos ha ayudado a planear las nuevas estaciones y también incluso cuáles son los usuarios que en el tiempo queremos seguir conservando y motivando a usuarios nuevos.
So what she said is like our best achieve was to install a public sharing system of bicycles in a city which to buy a private car is still a status. So here we have that insight of private cars is your I don't know, it's like your best achievement in life. So to begin this system here is a big achieve, and then to plan this system in this city with all the conditions. So you know, Medellin is a city with lots of high hills, so it's very complicated to have a system working here, and we have a lot of data that have allowed us to expand the system with new stations, with new users. So what she says, we have a lot of things to do still, but we have made it good so far.
Otra de las cosas que hemos hecho bien es que al instaurar un sistema de bicicletas en una ciudad como Medellín, donde cuando iniciamos no había cicloinfraestructura o no había planeación encaminada a las bicicletas y a los peatones, pues evidentemente lo que ha hecho el sistema de bicicletas es poner sobre la mesa en los 10 municipios de los que nuestra entidad hace parte el tema de la bicicleta. Y eso hace que cuando iniciamos teníamos aproximadamente 20 kilómetros de cicloinfraestructura, a hoy hablamos de 131 kilómetros. Creo que esas son las dos cosas que mejor hemos hecho, siendo la segunda más relevante para el uso de la bicicleta, no solo para Encicla como sistema, sino para en general la población que usa la bicicleta como medio de transporte.
So, okay, we began the system without a proper infrastructure. We didn't have any cyclopaths. When we began, we had just like 20 kilometers of cyclopaths. Now we have 130 kilometers. So what we have done very well is to put on the agenda of the 10 municipalities that form the metropolitan area is the using of the bikes and the necessity of build this infrastructure to connect all the municipalities and to connect all the valley with a system that can work and that can allow us to move from one municipality to another one. And we have made all of this and to put on the agenda this development of the infrastructure for the bicycle system.
Respecto a qué hemos hecho mal, finalmente creo que el sistema de los sistemas de bicicletas en el mundo es un negocio complejo, es un negocio que requiere, digamos que cierto conocimiento empírico cuando se empieza. Actualmente yo creo que nuestro mayor inconveniente es el software, porque como casi todos los sistemas en el mundo, digamos que estamos casados con el dueño de la tecnología y eso tal vez no nos ha permitido hacer cambios que quisiéramos en la medida en que hemos venido operando. También creo que no siento que lo hayamos hecho mal, sino que el hecho de no saber operar un sistema, digamos que en la medida de los años nos ha hecho corregir los errores en el tiempo, pero también hemos tomado decisiones tal vez que no han sido acordes a lo que marcaba el sistema en ese entonces. Creo que también ha sido base más de la inexperiencia y de no conocer qué es un sistema en una ciudad como estas, pero creo que han sido más errores que hemos corregido y que nos han hecho un poco lo que somos hoy.
what Luisa was saying is that we began this system without experience of a public system in the city. So we have made a lot of mistakes, especially with the software and the way they work in a city. We have tried to correct them by the years, but still we have many issues with that, with the technology and with the software that we use. She said that we try to correct most of them, but we still have trouble with that. And she said that it's more because of the inexperience than any other thing.
Yeah, but I think that's also I think normal than before.
Luisa, ¿ibas a decir otra cosa?
Que la pregunta, yo no entendí la pregunta completa de Nanos.
¿Con qué? No.
No sé.
Nano, you did a question or something?
No, I was just commenting that indeed it's not. It's if you do it for the first time that it's not that easy. It was just a small comment.
But Luisa was saying that Nuno, he said something or he asked a questions that she didn't understand, and I think I didn't understand either because I don't remember any question.
I don't think there was a question. No.
Okay.
No. Okay, so now we're running into our final, let's say, 4 minutes before the stage launched, and we'll lose completely the participants to the challenge, because that's when they will all run away and start seeing what there is there. Maybe we can just focus briefly in these last 3 minutes on really briefly into the impact. So yeah, there is the most obvious one. We will reduce CO2, blah, 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 more people using cars, less people using cars, more people using bikes, less people, maybe there's going to be even less need for so many buses. Who knows? But I would like to see what are the other impact that can come from this, from using bikes, not just the fact that we're going to reduce CO2, for example. And maybe Nuno, I can again just remind you briefly, pass the ball to you, since we've been always giving the ball first to Rosa.
Well, about the impact, basically, apart from all the traditional impacts that you were mentioning, Leon, basically, I would stress that you cannot look at cycling independently from other dimensions from the city. If you want to bring more bikers to the city and more bicycle users, you have to give them context. And context, for example, is houses. You have to change the way where people are living. You have to change the way where people are working. You have to provide facilities. It's not only to build cycling ways and segments so they can use the bicycles. So the biggest impact is the change on the way of living of people. It's a social revolution. So more than all the environmental, the health impacts that we all know that, I would underline precisely the social change, basically, and the economical change of it. So these two dimensions, both the social and the economical, are basically something that you will only see in the long term, but it's that important. What bicycles and cycling plays, that's the importance that it plays in the whole city environment.
Perfect. Rosa, really briefly.
Okay. So besides walking, cycling is the most democratic mean of transportation in the world. I mean, it's quite affordable. It's easy to have the maintenance, to keep it rolling by your own hands. I mean, it's easy to learn how to fix a bicycle and everything. And it also can be a game changer in access to jobs, in access to an hospital, in access to I mean, it's the freedom of mobility that is in game when you give a bicycle to someone. So as being this very democratic mean of transportation, and besides all these dimensions of health, decarbonization, every word that we are already know, cycling can play a role also in equity and in accessibility.
Sí, y yo creo que sobre todo en una ciudad como Medellín, finalmente los impactos ambientales, desde la equidad de género y un sinnúmero de cosas están ligadas al uso. Sin embargo, para nosotros ha sido más a la inversa. María.
Sí, acá estoy escuchando.
Para nosotros ha sido mucho más a la inversa, porque para una ciudad donde yo creo que el salario mínimo está como en $5 al día, el representar el no gasto de sus pasajes ha significado para nuestros usuarios un ahorro económico, pero ese ahorro económico se ha convertido ya en un estilo de vida. Entonces yo creo que hay unos impactos relacionados a ese impacto económico inicial que ya se llevan, digamos, ese derrotero de la equidad de género, del medio ambiente, de la salud, y también hace que empecemos, que digamos, en las ciudades con estas connotaciones sociales tengamos que empezar el reto de formas distintas.
So Luisa said that, of course, we have all those impacts regarding like environmental, gender equity, and all you said. But first of all is the economic impact, because we live in a city where the people they live with $5 or less than $5 per day. So to save money on transportation, it's like our biggest impact in a city. And she said that now it is not just to save money; it's like the people can move with the public system, which is free for everyone, and they don't have to worry about the transportation if they have the bicycles, and they can save that money that they really need.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, we already coming to the end of the round table. I think it was very interesting, and I hope it was also very interesting for the participants. I really like all the insights that all of you gave us, especially about the impact one, because I think that we really focus a lot on, there's a big, huge shift into using bikes in terms of environment. But I agree with what all of you said, that there's a lot of other interesting things that can happen if the cities become more cyclable, and if there's also opportunity, as also you mentioned in case of Medellin, that just by giving the shared bike system, there's already a lot of mobility from lower class possible that perhaps before it wasn't. So I think you're doing also a great job there. I just want to also underline there, since, like you said, you did start with nothing, and then now you have a whole big system. And thank you to everyone for all the speakers. I think the challenges by now must be already online. So I would just want to wish you good luck, and we'll see ourselves in 1 week when we will announce the winners of stage 2. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you. Gracias.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.